Want to welcome you to another edition of Political Breakfast here on WABE. I'm Lisa Rayam, and here with me today are strategists Brian Robinson and Tharon Johnson. Good to see both of you on this wonderful Monday. And, of course, our producer, Lily Oppenheimer, is here, and a very special guest as well. I like it when we have special guests. We don't have them very often, but when we do, it's a great time. And with us today is the new chair of Georgia's Democratic Party, Charlie Bailey. Hello to you, and welcome to Political Breakfast.
Good morning, Lisa and Brian and Tharon. Wonderful to be with y'all.
So Charlie, I'll jump right in. You and I have known each other for over 20 years. You reminded me earlier last week, you and I met back in 2004. You were, just graduating from law school at University of Georgia. And you were probably the first person I had met from West Harris County out in West Georgia. But the reason why I wanted to set the tone for this conversation is that you're someone who is not just merged on the scene. You know, we were in a battle for a U.S. congressman nominee to go and represent the 12th district at the time. And since then, you've run statewide and you've maintained good relationships. I saw you at the Capitol this year down there fighting for issues that a lot of the people in Georgia cared about. My first question out the gate is, what are you doing to unify the party after a very close election? I know that there was some back and forth at the convention, to elect you as chair. But just walk our viewers through sort of what you've been doing since the election to reunite the party so we can win in 2026.
Well, I want to say Tharon's being kind. He and Congressman John Barrow whipped us when I was political director for Doug Haynes back in 2004. One of the taught me a good series of lessons. And I'll say, almost won without a runoff. I was 5 votes away from winning without a runoff. So I'll say that. Democrats are united. It's these primaries and family things and chair elections, they happen. It's democracy. But we were together after the vote happened, and Wendy is my friend. That's who came in second, Wendy Davis. She's a wonderful public servant, has been city commissioner in Rome. We gave each other a big hug, and we're moving forward. And the reason we're united, Tharon, and you know this, is because 22 years of Republican leadership in this state has caused the people of Georgia to be quite angry with the situation they're in. The American dream is less attainable now than it was 20 years ago. You got 12 hospitals closed in the last 12 years of the 30 rural hospitals. And as you noted, I'm from rural Georgia. Of the 30 rural hospitals that are still open, 18 are at risk of closure right now. You look at all the metrics that judge educational attainment and opportunity for our kids. We are last, second to last, third to last. And we got a tax code written by Republicans under the Gold Dome that rewards billionaires, big corporations. And no offense to my two friends right here, but the latest lobbyist to come in and buy somebody a bourbon and a steak. The people of Georgia are right to be angry about that. Democrats are united behind fighting against that and giving folks finally a government in this state that respects working people.
Keeping in mind everything you just said, let's talk about your new role for a minute. It is a full-time job now. Talk about how it merits, being a full-time job and accomplishing some of these goals and attacking some of these issues that you just referred to.
Well, as y'all know, we're the 8th largest state in the country. It's been, I don't know how much ink has been spilled and airwaves have been filled about how we're a battleground. For Democrats, we basically have to send both United States senators to D.C. for a chance to control the United States Senate. It's getting to where a Democrat or Republicans got to win Georgia to win the presidency. So with those kinds of stakes, you need somebody that's doing this every day. There's too much money to raise. There's too much infrastructure to build and rebuild for it to be a part-time position. And that's the position that the decision the state committee made. And I'm honored to be serving in that role now.
Hey, Charlie, thanks for being with us. I always appreciate people taking time. And I do want to correct one thing. I am not a lobbyist.
Okay. All right.
It's a noble profession. It's a noble profession, and everybody deserves to have their First Amendment rights at the Capitol. But congrats on your election. I too know Wendy Davis. She is a great lady. We've done radio through the years together. So congrats on what would have been a tough win there. So going into 2026. One argument that Democrats are trying to make, and you just tried to make it there, talking about some healthcare statistics, tax code, is that things aren't going well in Georgia, that Georgia hasn't been governed well by Republicans. That's not really what Georgians think. A majority feels like the state's going in the right direction, even if they feel like the country is going in the wrong direction. I mean, you can't sell voters something they don't believe. You got to start with something that they're inclined to believe. Tell me about how you can convince them that this is just a terrible place to live.
Well, you can tell Brian's been doing this a while. But I never said it's a terrible place to live. I'm an eighth generation Georgian. My people been in Harris County for over 200 years. I love this state. It's not the state or its people that are failing. It's the government that is failing them. And in poll after poll after poll, Brian, you'll see people are quite dissatisfied with their health care. They're quite dissatisfied with the education opportunities that their kids do not have. They're quite dissatisfied, many of them, with their kids not being safe in their neighborhoods. And, as y'all know, I'm a former gang prosecutor. I mean, we've got right now at the GBI, we got years-long backlog in the testing of rape kits. We got 10, 11-month backlog in the testing of ballistics. And what that means is there's people on the street that would be incarcerated if the Republicans in charge of the state government actually put their money where their mouth was and cared about public safety and funded the scientists and the technicians that it takes to test this evidence. So it's not hard at all. The people are telling us they're angry with their situation. It is my job that they understand exactly who to blame because who's been in charge of the state for 22 years.
Yeah, Charlie, I want to say this. Brian is not a lobbyist, but even though sometimes he acts like he's one, some of his other journalists, they get involved. And I don't know about you, brother, but I haven't bought a steak and bourbon in a long time because of this terrible economy that we're in right now. And the legislators go out with me.
Trump economy's tough on you.
Yeah, it's tough on us, bro. I get a nice little app. We split a soup and maybe get a salad because, as you know, we have a limit of what we have to actually buy in Georgia.
Well, there's probably a Biden tax on cows because of the emission, the methane emissions from cows.
But I want to say this, Charlie, because I want to give you as much time as you possibly can, because one thing I like about our political breakfast audience, and I felt it this weekend when I was out and about, is that we have Democrats and Republicans who listen to this show, but a lot of moderate Democrats and progressive Democrats, right? So I get beat up a little bit sometimes from the progressive, but then the moderates, they love me. And I've schooled Brian last week about how the Republican legislators and elected officials, their wives love me because I think I speak to them when they can't really, speak up sometimes with their husbands being a little too far right. Tell me how you're going to rebuild the winning Democratic coalition in Georgia. We won with Ossoff. We won with Warnock. Came close to winning in 2018 with Stacey. Got Lucy Metcalf at a big upset in 2018. At 24, even though we lost, it wasn't a blowout, right? It was a tight election. Remind people that Kamala Harris only lost the election nationally by 1.5% of the vote. But what is going to be some of your first steps to try to rebuild this winning coalition that consists of Democrats, independents, and some disaffected Republicans? And what other groups am I missing that you're going to be laser-like focused on?
Well, I'm going to be, I think, and you know this about me, I'm honest, I'm straightforward. I tell it, look, we are facing, as a Democratic Party, historic lows in approval ratings, in this state and across the country. Now, Republicans are about historic lows too, because the truth is the people of this state and people across the country are rather dissatisfied with both parties and the government that doesn't support what they need is not fighting for them. And so we got to be honest about that, and we got to rebuild trust. I think we do that through being honest with people and talking to them about everything I said before. Nothing I'm saying is a surprise to Georgians. People know, frankly, they're being screwed. They feel that. What they need is Democrats, and my job as the chair of the Democratic Party, to acknowledge, yeah, you are, but this is who has taken actions to put you in that position. I think being frank about those things and talking about the things, in my view, the vast majority of Georgians get up every day and they think about is my kid safe? How are they doing in school? If I get a hospital bill, can I pay it? We work on those issues and talk specifically about how the Republicans in this state have made the attainment of those things more difficult, and the specific things we're going to do if folks trust Democrats with power, what we're going to do to fix that. Have a tax code that rewards work and not wealth, $15 minimum wage, expand Medicaid so folks, in parts of the state where I grew up don't have to drive 2 hours to get to a hospital, that there's a provider in their community. They want solutions, real solutions to those issues. And that's the way and I know I'm going on, but I'll just say, there's a misnomer out there that you got to have a message for the base, and you got to have a message for swing voters, and you got to have a message for soft Republicans. That's ridiculous. It's all the same message. The base, the swing voters, and everybody else, they care about their families. They're not asking for an extravagant life. They like a contented life. They like an equal shot, an equal opportunity to be able to realistically look their kids, grandkids, nieces and nephews in the eyes and say, I'm going to leave you a better life with more opportunity than the one that I had. We do that. We talk about those issues. That's where that winning coalition comes from. That's how Senator Warnock won and Senator Ossoff won, and that's how we're going to win going forward.
It takes money to win elections, and you pledged from the start that you'll raise the money needed to help the party win elections, although that may be difficult, with a Republican sitting president. How will you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, raising money and raising major money ain't easy. Anybody that tells you it is don't know the first daggum thing about raising political money. It's not easy, but I've done it before. I've raised major money, raised well over $4 million in my 2 runs for statewide office. We'll raise a lot more than that in this position. We start by rebuilding the state fundraising network. I mean, frankly, there's a ton of Democrats, independents, and others in this state that give money to Democrats, but they haven't given money to the Democratic Party in quite a while. It's a bit atrophied. Just, again, straight up, I said it would be straight. It's a bit atrophied. We're going to rebuild that, though, because there's a lot of people in this state that care a tremendous amount about getting Democratic leadership in this state and federally and locally. So I've done that. I've got a statewide fundraising network. We're going to rebuild that. And then we're going to have a 50-state fundraising strategy, because there's a lot of people all over the country that absolutely really care about what happens in the state of Georgia. I've referenced the necessity of having 2 Senate seats be Democratic from our state. So there's something to sell here in Georgia. People around the country understand it as well. But it's not easy, but we're going to do it.
Are we going to see more of Stacey Abrams, do you think?
Well, I mean, Stacey is a dynamic fundraiser, first off, and a leader in our party. And so I'm going to use whatever help Stacey wants to provide, we're going to use. And like part of being united, we're all going to be united and rowing in the same direction to get this accomplished. And I know she wants to see Democrats win in this state.
Charlie, I wish that you and I just had an hour alone for a separate podcast, because there's so much I would love to ask you from a Republican point of view. But one of them going into 2026 is, you talk about these kitchen table issues, the economy, healthcare, education, and I am kind of a fellow traveler. I think we may have different solutions for those issues, you and I, but I would love for my party to focus on those issues too, because I think they win general elections. That's not going to be what differentiates your candidates for governor in 2026 and on down the line, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, attorney general, whatever. They're going to have to fight it out over other issues. And you're going to be dealing with somebody maybe who says things that are pro-Hamas, says something that to defend the walkout on the bill that would have banned transgender surgeries for prisoners. These are some of the things, maybe something on the Public Safety Training Center where there's been a divide amongst people on the left. How do you patch the party back together when there's going to be a race to the left in your primaries going into the general, when, you can't win 50+1 in Georgia if you're seen as too liberal?
Well, We got a two-party system essentially, so you got big tents in either party. You're going to have differences of opinion on some things, but none of the things you mentioned. I mean, I ran in a primary, and I would like to note, Brian, I hope you didn't put money on Kwanzaa Hall back in 2022, and you were very certain that he was going to win that runoff. I think you said it on the air, so I hope you didn't lose any money on that when I won that one. But I didn't quote unquote run to the left. Look, I'm a proud, Democrat, but I ran on the issues that I just talked about. And you can win Democratic primaries, and people do all the time running on those issues, because that's really the heart of the Democratic Party is working people. And what are we doing to make sure they have opportunity? And that doesn't mean that Democrats are going to agree on every single issue. Lord knows it's not even possible. But we're going to run on working people. I think that's how we win elections, and that's how we're going to win next year.
I do want to apologize if I picked against you. I didn't remember that. Kwanzaa's a great guy, though. But so congrats on winning that and for reminding me. I love to be gigged a little bit when I get it wrong. But one issue the Democrats face, though, is that it's not the party of working people anymore. It has become really the party of college-educated Americans. And, we certainly see that in the metro Atlanta suburbs. There's been this realignment. Do you need to change your messaging to meet that reality of this realignment?
The messaging is going to be exact from me, right? Every candidate gets to decide what they want to run on. But again, I think you're setting up a false choice, Brian. The people in the suburbs, whether they got a college degree or whether they work a trade, they're worried about the same things. Is my kid safe? How are they doing in school? If I get a hospital bill, can I pay it? Can I save up a little bit of money? It's not separate messaging. It really isn't. And I can be, you can say, Charlie, I think you're wrong. I think you got to have 15 messages. I think that's been a mistake that Democrats have made. Trying to talk about 15, don't talk about 15 different things, focus and talk about the things that the vast majority of people are worried about every day. You win elections.
What's on the top of your list of things to do?
Well, we're doing an assessment of the organization now. Anytime you come into an organization, I've been around Democratic Party in some form or fashion for over 20 years, as Tharon said earlier. But I haven't been inside the party organization, so we got to do a full assessment of all operations and all staff and where's the money and what's the budget and all that kind of thing. So that's top priority, and then raise a whole heap of money. I know you said, what's the top priority? I've given you two already. And then third, rebuild this infrastructure around the state. We got some counties in this state don't have county parties at all, but they got Democrats there. And so we got to rebuild our infrastructure and our connection to elected officials. There's a lot of Democratic elected officials don't feel connected to the party, as strangely as that might seem. We got to rebuild that as well.
Charlie, you get it, man. When we met over 20 years ago, that's how we won in rural Georgia. Brian likes to make us this metro party, and ain't nothing wrong with making money, but we have some poor Democrats too. And newsflash, there's a lot of poor Republicans in the state of Georgia too. They just don't get, as highlighted in the Republican Party. We'll talk to McKoon about that later on this week. But one thing you said was the infrastructure. Real quick, I would beg you, and I know you know what I'm about to say, to make sure that you utilize the talent that we have in Georgia. Don't go out getting all these consultants in Chicago, New York, California, Nebraska, Iowa that don't know nothing about getting Democrats elected in Georgia. So what are you doing to make sure that you're recruiting Georgia talent to not only give money and to be a part of the apparatus, but talk to me a little bit more about that, because that's one of the things that I've heard for the last probably since 2018, since we're just going to keep it real. There was a certain faction in our party that got paid and got influence, and they lost. So what are you doing to rebuild, bring some of these old people like myself off the bench and bringing new blood back into the party politics?
Well, like I said, it ties in a little bit, Tharon, with what I said about reconnecting with elected officials. We got a lot of Democrats in the state, voters, donors, elected officials, operatives, volunteers, and everything, and it's gotten a bit disjointed. So one of the things that I'm going to do is, one, we have right now a convention every 4 years. We do it in the gubernatorial year. We're going to have a convention every year. We're going to have an annual convention, and we're going to start what's called the Georgia Pipeline Project to make sure that the talent here in this state is getting all of the training they need, all the latest cutting edge, whether it's organizing training, fundraising training, whatever it is. And so we're training up our folks to do the work in campaigns, because you get the best of both worlds. You get people that understand our state and understand the different regions of our state, and also are trained on the best tactics to win campaigns. So that doesn't mean we won't take advice from other folks. And look, there's special things about Georgia, but if they're doing something really good in rural North Carolina, and it's worked there, well, I'm not afraid to say I don't know everything, and let's see what the strategy you got, and we'll implement it here. But we got the talent here to do the work, and we're going to put them to work.
Yep. Well, we certainly appreciate your time. We know it's valuable, and we know you have to get back to work on this full-time job, this new full-time job of yours.
Hey, man, Charlie, you deserve that check, brother. You've been out here. Let me say something, and I would say this for him. He's not one of these rich Democrats that Brian likes to act like. This is a guy who grew up in rural Georgia, worked hard, took some hard hits on the chin. And I just appreciate you stepping up, man, in this pivotal time. And you and I'm gonna buy you a beer, not a bourbon. I'm gonna buy you a beer soon.
Well, I'll tell you, people who listen to the show know how I feel about this. I think anybody who takes on one of these jobs should be paid for it, because it's a thankless task. All that happens is you get blamed for bad things. Nobody gives you credit when things go well. It's a whipping boy type post to have.
He's gonna do it with a smile.
That's
Charlie
right.
Bailey will do it with a smile.
That's right.
I guarantee.
I bet you took a pay cut to take the job, but
yeah, it's not quite the same as the legal career, but
it's rewarding. But it's rewarding. It's rewarding work.
And you get to be on Political Breakfast, right? We don't just have random lawyer zones. So this is a huge.
You've actually uncovered the real reason I did this.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you for stopping by and saying yes, and good luck on your new endeavor.
Good to see you, Charlie.
Lisa. Thanks, Brian. Thank
you, Charlie.
Well, that was pretty nice of Charlie Bailey to stop by Political Breakfast and talk about his vision for his new role as chair of the Democratic Party. Any thoughts? I'll begin with you, Brian.
Yeah, I think he's focused on the right things as far as organization and fundraising. That is the role of the party. And of course, we want to ask him about policy, want to ask him about campaigns and what they're going to be messaging. But really, that's not the role of the state party. He is focused on the right things. And look, I think he is going to have a big challenge. The Democratic Party has a 35% approval rating in the state. That's a big hill to climb. It's worse than Trump's numbers in the state, which aren't great, but they're better than the Democratic Party's numbers. So those are the challenges that he faces. And when he's fundraising, he's got to go make the argument to people who are being asked for $6,000, $12,000 from John Ossoff, and then another $15,000, $16,000 from whoever is the Democratic nominee for governor. He's going to have to ask them to go find money in their budget for a faceless organization. And that's a hard ask. I mean, he was very frank about what a hard ask that is. So it's a tough job.
Tharon, and what are your thoughts? You think he's the right person for the job, right?
Look, I mean, I definitely appreciated him acknowledging that it was a close election. He's right. He was a few votes away from winning it without a runoff, but it did come within 18 votes, I believe. So the fact that he embraced Wendy Davis, who we both talked about, Brian and I, as being a staunch Democrat and representing North Georgia, and that's going to take some time to make sure that everyone who were made up the 47% that did not vote for Charlie, that he immediately went and reached out to those people. That's what I've been hearing. The second thing I like about Charlie is that he's going to raise the money. He's not afraid to ask for money. Like I said, I think I still owe him some money from one of his elections because he follows up. And then three, you saw his ability to debate. He's a well-trained trial lawyer, former prosecutor in Fulton County. So when B-Rob tried to go at him a little bit and trap him, he didn't take the bait. And then the fourth thing is that he talked about rebuilding the infrastructure apparatus. And that's what it's going to take. The truth of the matter is, the Democratic Party needs to really just do two things. Multiple things, but two things they got to do well is raise money and make sure that the infrastructure is in place. So when we get our nominees, they have the ability to go out and activate those networks, activate that ground game, and make sure that they're doing the messaging that the nominees are going to need in order to be successful in November 2026. And then, the fifth thing, look, I mean, He's new. He's young. He's a breath of fresh air. He's not scared to talk to different races. He'll get outside of the metro area. And more importantly, I mean, his name is Charlie. He's from Harris County. I mean, that's just going to help, right? But from knowing him, he can go rural, but he also has a lot of good relationships. And look, John Ossoff got his guy. I think John Ossoff, our U.S. Senator, wanted somebody that he trusts and someone that actually knows Georgia politics. And so I think Charlie's definitely going to be able to do that. But I think you'll see some big numbers posted from him. And the Stacey question, he answered perfectly, right? Nobody's going to try to run off Stacey. That's Brian and Republicans' new boogie woman. They go from Kamala, then it's Jasmine Crockett, then it's Stacey. There's going to be some new female next week, right? But the truth of the matter is we need Stacey Abrams. She plays a very important role in us winning in Georgia, and I think Charlie answered that particular question spot on.
All right. Well, here at Political Breakfast, we like to be fair. And coming up later in the week, we've got the Republican Party chair, Josh McKoon. He's stopping by Political Breakfast as well. So we'll check in with you later this week. Thanks, guys, for checking in, and more to come.